I'm finally prepared to discuss the saddest aspect of my upbringing, says Jinger Duggar. Jinger Duggar published a memoir earlier this year in which she discussed her beliefs, her upbringing, and her contentious family in a rather open manner. We say somewhat candidly because several fans were upset by what they perceived as Jinger's lack of complete candor. Many readers thought Jinger was too kind to her parents and ignored some of her upbringing's more scandalous details. Jinger might be well aware of that critique considering how candidly she just discussed some of her most difficult childhood memories for Mayim Bialik's podcast. When asked about the most upsetting memory from her youth, Jinger recounted a moment when she felt critical of everyone around her as a result of her parents' beliefs. It appeared as though I was wearing lenses that gave me a particular perspective on the world, and I truly thought it all, she recounted. I don't like to say, but I was probably the most pious person in my circle. I was really into these teachings, she added. So if families started to change and didn't do all this stuff, if their kids started rebelling, I'd think in my head, they haven't learned these principles yet, have they? Jinger now regrets the moral superiority complex she experienced in her preteen years. So, even as a 13 or 14-year-old, I thought I had my life planned out and knew how I wanted to raise my children, she said to Bialik. And I would, even in my heart, judge other people for doing things like sending their children to Christian schools or dressing in a way that I would assume would harm them. Yes, in the Duggars universe, even enrolling your children in a Christian school was a sin. One of Jim Bob's bizarre views is that evangelicals who don't homeschool their children are just preparing them for brainwashing. Jinger claims that despite the ridiculousness of his worldview, Jim Bob was ultimately a capable and loving father. My parents always said their kids were their hobby, so they would always seek to pour into us, have fun, and take us along on little projects they were doing, the woman recalled. We frequently visited houses because he worked in real estate. My parents tried to create a cheerful environment at home, she added. When you consider the big picture of everything, I believe the sad aspect was for me that I was inside battling a lot of anxieties and fears. We now believe that Jim Bob was a bad father. After all, he did nothing to stop their older brother from abusing his daughters. We don't want to debate Jinger about her personal experience, though. And hey, at least she's acknowledging that her parents indoctrinated her with some absurd views.